تمام. شكرا ambassador.
شكرا.
Welcome to the Tamazit.
Thank you. شكرا.
We are happy to have you today. I think this is the first interview to have with a diplomat, especially in Nairobi here. And we will do our interview in English. But if there's a specific message you would like to put across for the South Sudanese who are living in Kenya as an ambassador, then you will consider in Arabic. Okay. We'll begin maybe to people who want to know where we're speaking to.
Okay.
Yeah.
أول حاجة, first of all, thank you and welcome to the embassy. My name is Chol Ajongo, but popularly known in town as Chol Ajongo. The first name and the last name was takes the lead. I'm the South Sudan ambassador.
Okay. Thank you, Ambassador. As we begin this interview, we'll just want to know more about who is Chol Ajongo. Where were you born?
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
Chol Ajongo, actually I was born in a will. That's in northern Baragazal. A specific area is called Barmayan. Barmayan is a village between Wau and Awil. If you're driving from Wau, it's actually 45 miles north of Wau, just along the main road between the railway and the main road connecting Awil and Wau. From Awil is actually 36 miles south of Awil. That's where I was born. And then I went to school, primary school in the area. We had a school that was established in 1969. That was the time school was open. But I went to school to mid-70s in the same area, that is from Gawil, where I did my primary education. Then after primary education, I came to Awil Intermediate. This is early 80s. Awil Intermediate, I spent 3 years. Of course, it used to be 6 years primary, 3 years intermediate, then 3 years secondary. So I finished my primary, and then I came to Awil Intermediate. From Awil Intermediate, we said...
When was this? Which year was this?
I left primary in 1981. Okay, and then I came to Awil Intermediate in 1982. 82, 83, 84, we sat. Actually, 85, I sat for secondary school. Then we were supposed to go to Nyamlel. That was a new secondary school that was open in Awil. But that's the time when the war started. So the first top 10 of the students from the area were supposed to go to Nyamlel. Then one of my cousins who was in high school at the time in Busari advised me, instead of going to Nyamlel, why don't you come to Wau? So I came to Wau Day. That was in 1985 in August. But I only spent 6 months in Wau Day. And then January 1986, as part of the student activities and all this, we had the problems and the demonstrations in Wau against the coming of Dr. Hassan Abdullah Turab at the time, who was visiting Wau. So the school was closed, and I decided, one of my nephew also advised me, instead of staying in Wau, why don't you come to Khartoum? So I came to Khartoum in 1986. That's how I ended up going to Jazeera. So I spent 6 months in Wau Day. Then I came now to Khartoum. To Khartoum, there were a program to take in displaced students at the time, Ministry of Education in Khartoum. So the two admission came out. I was supposed to go to Khortagat, but I preferred to go to Lutfi, to Jazeera Rufaa.
Why?
Well, why? Because, those days, the student activism, politics, and you have to be aware there are a number of South Sudanese. And because we had quite a number of colleagues that we came together from Wau, and also some of them that we knew who were ahead of us in Khartoum. So it was a good place where we have a number of South Sudanese, and also it was a school that is managed by a South Sudanese headmaster. And I'll take this opportunity actually to at least also to pass my condolences, although I did it to the family of Stars Jalil Stars Garangalewanyang. He just passed on a few months ago.
He was the headmaster?
Headmaster Tarufa. He's somebody that is an icon for us. He managed that school. He was not like a normal headmaster. He was more of a role model and a father to all of us, because most of us were displaced students and we were looking up to him. He always tells us, and he's been guiding us through along with other teachers who are still alive now, like his deputy, headmaster, South Major Babur, is now a member of parliament. He was also a key. So this is how I ended up to. I chose to go to Rufa instead of going to Hortagat because there were South Sudanese there.
This was a high school.
High school.
Then you went to university.
Yes.
In Khartoum.
I said Shahada Sudania because when the whole idea of going to Rufa, I didn't want to go back to do second year because there was this rush. I want to join the movement. So I told my auntie, who was a teacher, she wanted me to go to second year, but I insisted to go to third year because I wanted to sit Shahada Sudania, to come back
to South Sudan.
To South Sudan. Okay, that was the whole idea.
So you were already practicing a bit of politics to join the movement.
A lot of it, yeah.
As a student.
Yes, a lot of it. Yeah.
And when you went to university, you finished your studies.
Yes, when we sat شهادة سودانية جينا امتحنا وسنة 90 التحقت بالجامعة دخلت جامعة القاهرة at the time كل حقوق law school. In the process now it was changed to Nilain, but we came in as Al-Qahira at the time. So I came to the university, joined law school. I continued, 1 year lost because when the Sudan government captured Turid, the whole university was closed. So we lost a complete year. Those were time they were mobilizing students from Mujahideen and the rest. Of course, some was opted out. We could not go. If you had to come in, you would actually join the movement at the time. So we continued university until I graduated mid-90s, 1996. I finished my school December. And then 1997, I said my bar examination. Of course, one of the tough exams in bar examination usually.
Yeah. For you to join
to practice law.
Yes.
Either Minister of Justice or a lawyer or judiciary. So 1997-98, I set my bar examination, passed my bar examinations, but because of again my political position, stand at the time, it was very difficult for me to look for it to work in the Sudan government. Definitely, that was the position. Of course, some colleagues joined, but I opted out.
Yes.
I opted out, and although there were relatives and friends who wanted me to do that, I know one of the senior judges now in the Ministry of Justice, in the judiciary actually, was our neighbors. He managed to try to convince me that although I had a chance, but I said no, I cannot go to this because I don't see myself sitting in the court. That the legal system that actually latches my own sisters and daughters and mothers who are actually doing local brews because they have no options. That's what they should do. They were actually, in fact, most of our mothers were taking care of the families because I know from my own family a number of officers that were working in Sudan in police and the other organized force were punished, especially from 1991-92. In the family, I had 2 officers, very, very sharp. So, ضباط في البوليس كل الشرطة دفعة 47 أهلهم صار العام في نفس السنة. Okay, because they were not considered to be really like prone because they were Christians. So I knew it right from within the family itself how many people lost job, not because of anything, but because of the political color, or because they were not considered to be conformist, or at least مؤلف قلوبهم. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So we were there in the front line, and we had a lot of encounters. My Jama had some arrests at some point. Those were things that happened, and I think I was talking to you about earlier. So I decided not to work for the government, and I got a chance of because one thing became tough. من خلال العمل الداخلي, some key students were advised actually to leave because it was not safe any longer.
Yes. So
I decided to leave Sudan. Of course, coming southward was out of question because if you fly from Khartoum to Wau or Will, you will be killed definitely.
Yes.
As an intellectual, because that was the trend. Yes. Coming back, you're going to George.
Yes.
So the only road that was open, and it was meant, was Egypt. Because Egypt was considered to be, Dawla Arabiya.
Yes.
If you moved in, you would be neutralized. You wouldn't have any activities against the government, and تفكيرك التكوين الفكري حيكون عربي بالتالي ما حتكون خطر على الناس. So that was the whole idea. Egypt was the only route for most people. I came to Egypt and I went to the UNHCR. I got protection at the time.
You became a refugee?
Yes.
In Egypt?
Yes. I joined the UNHCR.
Which year was this and how long were you there?
1999. I came to Egypt and applied to the UNHCR office at the time. I was immediately taken in, given the protection. 6 months down the line, I was recruited by the UNHCR office because after I was taken in, and then because I was married at the time, I have a little boy, and then my wife was expecting, and I had a new child. So usually when your status change in a family, you will have to update your file. So I go to the UNHCR now to update my file because I have a new family member. So a lady in charge of the program, the Durable Solution Department, she's a lawyer, an Egyptian. Look, because when you book an appointment, they will have to get your file to go through. So she went through my file. She realized that I'm a lawyer, and actually have my bar examinations, and I speak other languages apart from Arabic, because other Sudanese languages at the time. So she takes my file now to the protection officer, who is a French, very senior guy, who was Babet Hemaya, who was actually Versa Kustel. He was a guy that worked in the UN for a very long time. Very good history in the UNHCR. So she went and told the guy, you know what, I'm seeing there's a young Sudanese here. He's a lawyer by training, and I think he speaks more languages. He would be potential if we had to recruit him. So I come in the morning. She told me, you know what, I looked through your file. Are you willing to work with us? So the question was, are you recruiting? That was my reply. Exactly. He said, no, just I'm asking, are you willing, interested to work with us? I said, if you are recruiting, I really don't mind. So she goes up to the production officer. Then she comes back and called me in. She said, let's go. When I was just standing, a young man, the guy looked at me, he smiled, said, you know what? He told the lady, no wonder. That's what he said. I don't know why. Okay? And he told me that, you have to start. You want to start tomorrow, after tomorrow? I said, yes. So that's how I got recruited now at the UNHCR office. And he told me, because I want you to start with the reception, classification of asylum seekers. I used to take in between 150, 160 a day. Influx of Sudanese, of course, and the Eritreans.
Or coming into Egypt.
Yeah. So South Sudanese, Northern Sudanese, across those who are in the positions, the Eritreans, the Ethiopians, and later on the Iraqis and Afghanistan. So it's a huge number of people. So I spent 6 months doing classifications. When you receive an asylum seeker, you see categories, whether they are they have the passport on them, do they have any traveling documents on them, are they single parents, if somebody with acute medical problems, somebody with trauma, you categorize them so that when you're doing the timing for the interview, you base on the recommendation I give, they will give you the shorter or longer period of wait. So if it is a high need case, by category, high need cases in UNHCR are cases like a single mother going alone without a father, or an accompanied minor, a young boy or a young girl without an adult following them. These are high need cases. So instead of waiting for 6 months for the interview, these guys, based on my recommendation, they will be given 2 weeks immediately, because they are high need cases. They will be interviewed, given protection, given the cards. If they have medical cases, they will be transferred to medical facility for treatment. So that's how I started working with the UNHCR. 6 months down the line, I was now promoted from what I was doing now to assist in the Durable Solution Department. Durable Solution Department is the department that deals with cases when you are accepted as a refugee. Then your file will be classified and actually looks through whether you fit to be resettled, either in Australia or Canada or US. Because some countries will take, like Canada, for example, that's where I ended up going to. They will take people who prefer small families and educated. America will take quite a number of huge families in the rest. Same thing to be Australia. The first category of Sudanese that went to Finland, they were my client. You know what? In 2000, the delegation from Nordic country came, from Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, composed of lawyers, immigration lawyers, and the Ministry of Labor. They were looking for people, 35, from Nuba Mountain, Blue Nile, and South Sudan. These were the first Sudanese to go to Finland. They were my case. I was trusted to work with them. So I was asked now to select the young people from the Nuba Mountain based on the criteria that I just said. This is how I ended up taking somebody by name Habib, who was the first from Nuba Mountain, who I'm in Nuba Mauro. Moro. And also some families, single parents from Blue Nile and South Sudan. So I took 35, which I interviewed, categorized, and then they were interviewed by the Finnish delegation. And they were the first Sudanese to be taken to Finland. This was 2000 in May.
How long have you worked for the UN in Egypt office before you also started the process to Canada?
Exactly 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. In fact, I was being offered, the gentleman was offering me if I were, because I had to do it like to put training at the American University, that was offered, or I go to Geneva for human rights and the convention, the refugee law, international refugee law, which is basically starting the convention 1951 that governs the refugee status.
Mm-hmm.
But a Canadian lady working in the legal department advised me, said, "No, Chol, I know you have the potential. The idea was if I were to go, I would come to Khartoum in 2001 as part of the UNHCR program officer. But the lady influenced me, said, "You know what? You have a young family. It is good to take your children to a place where they can get better education because you can still come back. Because I know with your skills, if you go to Canada, you will find a job." Even I had option of going to Australia. Even the delegation with Finland, the Finnish delegation wanted me to go with these people because I would help them.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to choose someone, Abil, which I recruited at some point to be doing translations for the Nuba component, had to go. I convinced him to have to go because this is a chance. He went. And I think he's still there now. They've been very happy, they are in Finland.
Mm.
So she insists that I should go to Canada. Even the city I go to, she chose it. So that's how I ended up going to Canada.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been to Canada before you come back to Africa?
I went to Canada exactly 2001. That was in October. And of course, in Canada, we continued doing the same thing, the activities of the work and the movement. 2002, I became the chair of the SPLM chapter in Ottawa. I held the position twice for 2 consecutive terms, and 2002, 3, 4, 2005, and 6. 2006, of course, I got a job with Canada. In Canada, I was doing something to do with the Immigration Canada,
mm-hmm.
which is a branch of Catholic Immigration, so which actually support immigration Canada, deal with the refugee
mm-hmm.
that were coming in. But I resigned my job in 2006. 2007, I came back to Khartoum as part of the SPLM component. That were the diplomat that were to be taken out to foreign minister in Khartoum.
Mm-hmm.
So I came to Wazir Khariji of Khartoum as Secretary Awul,
mm-hmm.
as first secretary.
Yes.
It's 2005 and 7.
Yeah.
So I stayed in Khartoum for that period of time, and I got promoted to Khartoum to Mustashar, which is the councillor.
Mm-hmm.
2007, I was deployed to the Netherlands. I was in The Hague,
mm-hmm.
as now the deputy ambassador of Sudan,
mm-hmm.
when we were still part of Sudan.
Yes.
So I served there for 3 years and a half.
Yes.
From 2007 up to 2011, I was in Holland,
mm-hmm.
before the independence of South Sudan.
Let's look at your appointment now becoming a full ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
When did this happen?
When we became independent, I came back to Juba. Like any other South Sudanese, of course. I worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In Khartoum, because from the time we spent, 2000, and some of us were supposed to be promoted, the very senior Mustashar at the time, councillors. Our promotion was actually due in Khartoum in July 2010 as full municipal potential, like the lower rank below the ambassador. But Khartoum, because they knew we were going, they never acted on our promotions. They said, they would go promoted. So, Khartoum, Juba, I came to Juba and worked in the ministry. In 2012, we were promoted. I was promoted as an ambassador. Based, of course, they had to request all the files and all this, so we were promoted. A number of us on that time were the first group to be promoted by Jackson. The president, of course, promotion now is a prerogative of the head of state, so a number of us were promoted. So I got promoted in 2012 as an ambassador, the true ambassador at the time.
The first assignment was where? As an ambassador?
After graduation, after the promotions, 2012, of course, we were opening embassies now.
Mm.
So at the time, we had Minister Nial, who was the foreign minister. We decided, the Minister of Foreign Affairs decided to open embassies. So I was deployed to London. I went to UK. In fact, I was to UK as the second man. But I was the first to go to establish an embassy. So I went to London in 2012, May, to establish the mission, South Sudan Embassy. Mm. And I went, of course, with some other colleagues followed us. So we managed to open an embassy. And my senior, my ambassador, full ambassador, head of the mission that I, which is Ambassador Dalek, Raj Mumtaz, one of the CNDC in South Sudan, is a very nice person and very technical, in terms of skills. We learned from him a lot. Mm. He came, and then I served in London as a full deputy ambassador from 2012 May up to 2016, when His Excellency the President now decided to transfer me from London in my full capacity as an ambassador to Nairobi as a head of mission. After I spent, because I served 2 terms now as deputy with the Sudan, although I was a council at the time, and then as an ambassador under somebody, the senior ambassador in London. So my first full promotion as full ambassador in one company was when the President decided to bring me here, and then I was promoted now. This is how I came to Nairobi.
Okay. Ambassador Chol, let us look at some of the achievements now during your work in Kenya. What initiatives, what have you achieved as an ambassador since 2016, right?
Yes. Mid-2016, yes.
Yeah, okay. Roughly 6 years now.
Yes.
Let us look at some of the achievements that you've done, or any initiatives that you have come up with as an ambassador that the South Sudanese benefited from.
Well, it's hard to rate yourself as an ambassador or as a civil servant. Usually there are criteria of rating our performance. A performance of an ambassador or a diplomat will not be rated in isolation. Usually, because as an ambassador, when I came in, I was not the first one. There were other colleagues that were here. And of course, they did a lot of work as well before I could come. So what we do, you either consolidate the existing bilateral relationship that was there, try to improve on them, or try to maintain them to a certain level. Because Kenya, for us, is very strategic capital. It's a key capital because of a number of reasons. First, Kenya became the refuge, the only place that South Sudanese fallback positions when we lost Ethiopia in the 90s. So we had a huge presence of our people in Kakuma as refugees. Some of them were in, until we had to go through process of CPA. Of course, you know the rest of the story. Yeah. But a number of our senior cadets and families remained here. So that by itself makes it very key for us to have our presence in Kenya as a government. And this embassy is one of the important embassies, not because of me being here, but because of the strategic location of Kenya itself with South Sudan, with a number of issues, a lot of communication, a lot of connections. So in terms of achievement, at least I can, foreign ministry, we have criteria of how you rate performance of whole foreign ministry based on foreign policy in comprehensive approaches. Because you do one selection is that as a foreign ministry, how many tasks you had wanted to achieve at a given period of time, and whether they were achieved or not, and if they were not achieved, you know why, what went wrong. So as an ambassador, to come back to your question, is that it's very hard for me to rate myself that I did that much. Probably our community were here, of course, which is a small fraction as well with the foreign service, because as an embassy, core mandate, of course, apart from bilateral and multilateral engagement, because I'm here handling multilateral, because Kenya is one of the 4th UN capital with the presence of the United Nations UNEP, and then UN Habitat, which I'm representing a PR in. We are doing with the multilateral aspect and also bilateral aspect. So in terms of bilateral aspect, of course, at least we can claim that our relationship with Kenya is stable, being a neighboring country, a country that we have a lot of connections, including the affinity from both sides.
That's actually the question where I was coming in terms of the Kenyan relationship and South Sudan.
Yes.
In terms of their people, their movement, legality.
With the term of movement, we managed, one of the things that we can claim to have achieved is that we managed to, at least during my tour of duty, to waive the visas. Because this is part of the East African program that people have to move freely. And it was a little bit uphill task because there were a lot of questions as to whether this is happening all right or not. But we managed at the end to make sure that at least Kenya and South Sudanese can move freely without visa, which was a hindrance. Because I was telling colleagues here that, in terms of practicalities, if $50 that you require for a visa, you think it would be a lot of money, think about a Kenyan, the psychological aspect of Kenya saying, I can go to South Sudan for free without asking a visa. But he or she goes to Juba. He or she will be putting up in the hotel. The expenses of the hotel, what she can buy, what you eat, you will end up paying more money in terms of, from the economic point of view, you will be spending more money in South Sudan if you have to think that, I can go freely, than being restrained by having visas processed because of $50. So at least in that aspect, you know how many people, and actually we see the number of people going, it's a lot. So at least flights, landing in Juba, you putting up in the hotel, buying few things there, going to restaurants. From the economic point of view, I'm not an economist, but I think you get more money in return than somebody getting switched up because of the visa of $50. So,
that's a great achievement, Ambassador Chol. Let us look at the population, if at all you have any statistics about the South Sudanese who are in Kenya. Kakuma alone takes almost 140,000 South Sudanese refugees. There are people in urban cities. In any case, do you know how many people either they have been imprisoned or they have cases that you handle as an embassy?
Yes, you know, in terms of the population, of course, we have not conducted data or statistics as an embassy for a number of reasons. Although it has been our plan. You know, we have it in the program. I've been talking to my colleagues, the one in charge of diaspora from the immigration department, that we want to move at some point to make sense. But we have rough estimation, of course, which cannot be shared because rough estimation is rough estimation. I don't want to give a false figure. Yeah. But what I know in terms of household, the number of people we have here is huge. Mm-hmm. I have the number that I came up to last time. Mm-hmm. But since this is a formal setting that you can't afford communicating things that you have not substantiated. Sure. And these are institutions. But we have huge presence. Of course, refugee and whether urban or in Kakuma. You know, again, this issue of the refugee it was coming up as a conversations between us, especially previously a year ago when the thing of the camp coming down and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I know, you know, some South Sudanese because strictly, if you talk of refugee, by definition, based on the convention, there are 5 criteria that apply for somebody to qualify as a refugee, mm-hmm. based on Geneva Convention 1951, refugee status.
Maybe you can mention some so that at least we...
Some of them, a refugee is somebody due, that's the definition, due to well-founded fear, has left his or her country for reasons of persecution because of color, because of religion, because of political opinion. There are 5 criteria. See, one of them applies on you, you are a refugee. I'm saying this for a simple reason. And that's why you avail yourself of the protection of your government. You don't expect your government to provide protection because you know you are considered either because of the Arab attack or the law attack or التنظيم السياسي. الأسباب الخمسة المعايير الموجودة بالنسبة للاتفاق بالنسبة للجنيفة المعاهدة الدولية. Coming to our people in Kakuma, I know there are people that may have well-founded reasons to stay in Kakuma, but also I know quite a number of them are there because they're having access to services like health and education.
Right.
The reason saying this as an ambassador sitting here, I know why. Because if you're a refugee and you have well-founded fear that your government is persecuting you, you can afford to come to the embassy. You know, when we're a refugee, السفارة السودانية في التحرير, you can come close to it because you're a refugee.
Yes.
I know some refugee here, they come to us here, they get traveling documents, they travel to Juba, come back, leave that here, and then go back to the camp.
But don't you think that they have a reason as to why they have to be in the camp because they want to get either free education or medication, maybe where they're coming from? They are not access to those facilities.
Exactly, and that's I totally agree with you, and that's why we give them that. That's why we know, by definition, they are not real. They don't meet the criteria. Because if you are a real refugee, you can come to the embassy.
Maybe some of them, not everyone.
Some of them. This is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Some of them. Okay, some of them.
Good.
Yeah.
Ambassador, I want us to look at the issue of the students who are in Kenya, the SAC.
Mm-hmm.
There has been cases of so many students striking and camping in many embassies in Africa and even like Zimbabwe, just to give an example, Zimbabwe, Egypt, Ethiopia, and others the other side of the north. They are camping in the embassies because of either their scholarship has not been maybe fulfilled by the government of South Sudan based on the promises whether to pay the fees or maybe the pocket money. But we have never seen this case in Kenya. What are you doing as an ambassador that you manage to handle this?
I'm lucky. Yes, there are, of course.
Have we have had this case here?
No, I think the problem with Kenya, we never had government scholarship per se in a huge number. because Egypt gives scholarship. And then when they give scholarship, of course, scholarship, giving a scholarship to a country from a country by, this is what we call in diplomacy actually, cultural influence. It's not a free lunch. You give a scholarship to a country because when a student if you go to school in Morocco, for example, you go to school in Italy, you speak Italian, you become culturally affiliated to Italians. If you happen to have gone to school in Italy or to Germany, you are part of us, you are South Sudanese, or you move a mountain, anything to do with German, you would have that feeling. You had some part of you that belongs to that part of the world. It's actually cultural influence. That's the whole idea. So, coming to a question, we never had that thing because Kenya used to have been offering us, of course, a lot of opportunities, but most of the students are here. Either families were here. They went to school from childhood and they continued until they have to go to university. So they are not per se government sponsored. They were here, they were born here. Some came back after 2005. They joined, they were being sponsored by their parents. So it wasn't a government sponsored group because Kenya has the biggest number. Okay, Kenya also has its own problems. Highly populated society, highly educated society. In the East Africa, I think it's the top in terms of education. So also they have their own problems. So I don't think that's why this idea of a scholarship in big number, Kenya would not fit because there are a lot of Kenyans that could not even get access. The university students, of course. This is something that for Kenya to talk about. But in terms of organization and students, what is happening in other places is unfortunate because the students, being a university student also, should be able to know the conditions. You read the situation where the country is in. It's not because they are being neglected, but because of practical reasons. Because of the war, austerity measures, and there's financial difficulties that the country is going through, it's very hard for a government to maintain or at least sustain its promises. Leave alone the students, even some of the workforce that are in government. Sometimes there are challenges in the salary coming on time. Not because the government is not willing to do it, but because, practically speaking, the government is going through difficulties because of the war, the civil strife that happened, because of the oil revenue dropping at some point, and that's the only single source. It becomes very, very challenging for the government. So students, they have their reason, of course, but also they should be mindful of the real conditions of the country. Being a university student should be able also to comprehend much better. Yes.
Ambassador Chol, let us look at some cases that an embassy may be handling here in Kenya. Either it could be criminal cases. You are in charge of all the South Sudanese who are here. And whether you have some cases that may be reported to you by the Kenyan government, or if you have people in prisons that are here. Do you have any case of such, and how many?
I know of 3 cases of South Sudanese who are in prison. And there's a conversation going on between us and the Kenyan authority to that regard because, again now, as a lawyer, we have a principle, to have a case in law, there must be certain principles that guides whatever happens when crime is committed, depending on what we call jurisdiction, where crime was committed. It could be universal, it could be, if a crime happens in Kenya, where a crime was committed, Kenyan jurisdictions qualifies to try the case.
Yes.
So you would expect, you have thousands of South Sudanese in a locality. There must be cases, of course. South Sudanese either interacting with Kenyans or among themselves or with the institution. So we had a number of cases. They are not a lot, but we have cases. Regarding these marginal cases where police interaction with some individuals, young people during the weekends, yes, and we always address them. When we approach them, when we get phone calls that there's somebody in the prison or somebody in police custody for one, 2, 3 reasons, we have officers that are in charge. They always go there, we resolve them. But major cases that I know of, there are 3 cases, because there are legal issues, it will not be easy or even comfortable to talk about them.
Okay.
Because of that practicalities.
Yes.
So for a number of reasons, either they are crime being tried, it's always unwise to talk about
something
in the court. Yeah.
Vice versa, there are cases where 5 South Sudanese were banned in the court.
Yes.
And maybe it could be more other cases that you might have where the Kenyan citizens have also committed against the South Sudanese.
Yes, the case, of course, of Nakuru was a tough one, and I think I had an interview with the radio at some point, and we managed, of course, Kenyan promises concretely from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Interior at the time, C.S. Machandi. I met with him twice, and he promised and he kept his word. He told the ambassador it's a pure crime. These people will be brought to book, and they were arrested. Okay, the gentlemen that were suspected, the suspects were arrested. They were in police custody. Of course, because the rule of law, if you are arrested, now the next stage of proceedings now would be either the family would get in lawyers to follow the case. Now it's a legal issue because we have been able to identify the suspect. The rule of law takes its course, then through the procedures. So yes, that was tough. Of course, you might have heard also because I talked about it last time, and it's fighting between the South Sudanese and the Kenyans. The whole scenario, I think and you have it in your thing. Yeah. But people are in, and we advised the family at the time that they have to get, they were working towards mobilizing some resources so that they get a lawyer, they hire an attorney so that he or she follows the case with the family. I've never gotten the last update from them, but that's what I know for sure.
Why not embassy to handle? Don't you have the legal or paralegal department that can handle such cases as an embassy?
Embassies don't handle cases in terms of because if you open yourself up for doing legal cases, you will expect also to be sued.
Yes.
So you are now walking a fine line of the conventions whether somebody or a diplomat is allowed to go to court and give testimony. That works the reverse. So that's why there's this kind of immunity that's around diplomats, that they are not supposed to be sued or even go to court to give testimonies unless my host, the sending government, waive. And this is the whole thing when we talked about the conventions now.
Pastor Chol, let us look at maybe the most challenging part or year that you have ever faced as an ambassador to Kenya, South Sudan ambassador to Kenya.
The challenging part was COVID period, because although we never had significant cases of people getting sick, but we were receiving a lot of evacuations from our people, our senior cadets and people with medical conditions, pre-existing medical conditions, and the movement and restrictions. So we were really, you will be told that somebody's been evacuated, and these are the situations, restriction access to hospitals at that time. Usually when we have people in, we are expected to be there for them.
Sure.
And because of the conditions with the mask and access to the medical facilities, it was tough. And during that time, we lost, not as a result of COVID, but other medical conditions. But it was very difficult, as you have to provide the normal consular services that we should be able to provide to our people when they have those stresses, including families that are lost a loved one. But we can't even go to their houses. It was tough. And of course, it was a general problem. You might have seen other places in Italy. It was a serious problem in the US. So that was a little bit hard time for us as an embassy. Yes.
Ambassador Chol, before we conclude, in case there is anything that you would like to add, and I did not ask you, I think I'll give you this chance to say.
Well, that's nothing much. First of all, I thank you very much and also wish you and your team a happy New Year. All of us do different professions. We always do different things. But at the end, it helps itself. It serves the humanity. The messages you are carrying in, people sometimes take them for granted, but they are really significant in terms of educating our people, in terms of carrying the true and authentic messages to all our families. Even when we talk of peace and people avoid praise, crowds and mashakal, that using your means of communication is very vital, is important, because without which we cannot communicate with other people beyond areas where we are in. So I wish your team and all what you do, really professional and good job that you are carrying on. Not all of us can carry cameras, not all of us can ask questions, because all of us are frame and wide different. We have different talent. that not all, I cannot do what you're doing because this is where you belong. So I wish you all well in your service, and I wish you also to grow professionally what you do, so that you do the same more and document history, the good part and the bad part, because history is not always good. That I think, but somebody need to be there to capture these things, so that our generations, those who come in the future, know where we came from and what we are doing. And it is through this means, through people like you, that we can be able to do that. That's the message I can say. And thank you very much for your time.
Ambassador Chol, thank you so much. We are humble, and thank you for this message that you're able to put across. We are really humble to have you on Radio Diplomacy. Thank you so much.